So the first speaker will be Aida, Kalender, Creative Europe Desk, Bosna and Hercegovina. Thank you, Aida. And as for the first session, think about the questions for the end of our presentations. And yeah, as I said, the opportunity for direct contacts, and if you need further information about scenes, actors on the scenes in the respective countries. Aida?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for staying so late today. I hope this last sessions will be also interesting for you. Thank you very much, Creative Europe Desk Serbia, and particularly Dimitri. He's not here. Yeah, he's coming. For inviting us all those years since Creative Europe Desk Bosnia and Herzegovina exists. It is 2015. I will also start in the light of established tradition by previous colleagues with playing exotic video about my country.
Is there a more complicated system of government in the world than the one in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Coupled together after the Bosnian Wars of the 1990s, the country has 3 presidents, 14 governments, and 136 different ministers. It's been one full year since the hundreds of people elected to those posts have been unable to form coalitions that would govern at all levels in the country.
So if you thought that Belgium is a complicated country, now you saw that Bosnia is a combination actually of Belgium and Switzerland. So we have 2 entities as Belgium, but we also have 10 cantons as in Switzerland, and we also have municipalities, etc. And for big country as we are, do you know how many inhabitants live in Bosnia? 4 million people. With these levels of government, it's really huge chaos. And this chaos definitely reflects on the work of cultural and creative sector and the desk as well. So within those 14 ministers that we have, we don't have Minister of Culture on the state level. So that makes really huge problem for the cultural sector to enter any European or international programs, one of them Creative Europe, because we need 2/3 votes for any single decision. So we needed 1 year, almost 1 year, to sign this association agreement of entering Creative Europe program. So we've been late, and actually cultural sector itself, who already received some grants, made huge pressure on those free members presidency to sign this agreement. We also had problems with establishing of the desk because political agreement could not be made. And after really long discussions and negotiations, we proposed, actually, I'm coming from independent cultural organization, we created policy memo, policy brief for the government. We actually did all work for them and proposed them the model of the desk. We proposed something called Slovenian model, where desk is outside of the ministry. Ministry make a public call and different organizations apply in order to perform the role of the desk. So with some miracle, they accepted this policy brief, and then they changed functioning of the desk. So in 2015, end of 2015, our desk was established. Role of the desk is performed by 2 organizations, 2 independent organizations, one in Sarajevo and one in Banja Luka. Sarajevo organization covers the culture sub-program, and Banja Luka organization media sub-program. As you probably all know, Bosnia and Herzegovina has very rich cultural sector, a lot of organizations, a lot of very good artists, a lot of good authors. So I think you will all find a way actually to find potential partners in Bosnia and Herzegovina for your projects. But what I would like to stress in my short presentation is actually importance of support for the desk, for our desk and for the desk in all countries of Western Balkans. Next year we are facing actually preparation for the new Creative Europe program 21-27, where we need to start from now making pressure on our governments to not to be late to sign those agreements with the Creative Europe in order to support creative sector, which is really, really eager to apply, to find partners, to make international collaborations, but unfortunately political decisions are not there. To add to that, also information from this video, we still don't have government at this moment on the state level of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we had elections last October. It reflects also on the work of our desk. We still didn't received actually funding for 2019, and now is 7th of November. So when my phone was ringing an hour ago, actually we are trying to make pressure on the minister to finally fulfill those agreements from the international accords that the state have signed in 2014. So not to be pessimistic anymore, I hope things will be better. We will really do our best. Next year in October or November, we are planning to make really huge event in Sarajevo, where we would like to invite representatives of all desks, both culture and media, from the region, and also representatives of successful projects that have been awarded by Creative Europe program, where we would like to make some kind of recapitulation of all successes and lessons learned from the participation in Creative Europe program, and also to advocate for the entering into a new program. So I hope I will see some of you next year in Sarajevo. In the meantime, you are of course welcome to contact me if you need any information about cultural sector in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marc Rettel from Creative Europe Desk, Luxembourg.
I can just add that we still don't have a government in Belgium either.
You different rules.
I know. So we're not comparing, but just don't come in.
Very nice to compare. Scotland did as well. Yeah. Serbia is not far behind. As regards the yes.
Okay.
We want to
Step to the side.
yeah.
So thank you very much on my behalf to Dimitri and to the whole team from Soccodato for inviting me and for inviting the other desks to be here part of this forum. I'm very happy to present to you the Luxembourgish part. I heard about small countries. Tunisia and Georgia were talking about small countries. I think I beat the game today. I will do SK, I will do also the survey. Who has been in Luxembourg? Not just passing through. Not just passing through. So, that's this going to work. Yes. So, Luxembourg, for the ones that don't know, it's this tiny country trapped between Germany, France and Belgium. And when I say tiny, it's indeed 57 kilometers large and 82 high at the maximum. Which doesn't mean there is lots to discover, and to explain you this and to highlight this, that's why I'm here today. So basically, something that's very important to note, you're not easily going to have language barriers with Luxembourg, because we have 3 official languages, Luxembourgish, German and French, and everybody's also at least learning English lots of people also speaking Italian, Portuguese, or other languages. We are not some millions, we are just 613,000, but 48% of these people living in Luxembourg are non-Luxembourgish, and we have 175 different nationalities on this small spot on the map. And on top of these 613,000, you have almost 200,000 every day crossing the borders to be working in Luxembourg. So, very quickly, I was asked to tell something about me. That's me. Very quickly, so I was asked what was my background. I did a PhD in literature and theatre. I've been working in the theatre field, but now I'm working at ALAC, which is the Agence Luxembourgeoise d'Action Culturelle, an agency, basically non-profit organization, getting money from the Ministry of Culture and the City of Luxembourg to be implementing different projects. And the ones I'm working on is first Creative Europe Desk Culture Luxembourg, and on the other hand I'm head of the Reading Luxembourg program, which is an export program for promoting books and literature from Luxembourg abroad. Basically, what's my job? Connecting people. So, but what is the cultural landscape of Luxembourg? Because it's so tiny, so you probably think there's 5 cultural stakeholders. No, there's hundreds of cultural stakeholders. And if I would like to wrap it all together, you see, that's the word cloud I would suggest to you. So as we're so small and as we don't really know the borders, I mean, Schengen's based in Luxembourg, little footnote, we are really thinking beyond borders. So international cooperation, also in the field of culture, is really everyday life for cultural stakeholders in Luxembourg. But you have really, in all sectors, lots of very active stakeholders. I will try to wrap up a little bit what's our main cultural stakeholders in Luxembourg, some of them being very interested in building up more European cooperation and Creative Europe projects. So up to you afterwards if you have any questions. Knowing distances are small in Luxembourg, that helps me also to know all of my stakeholders, or at least to find them if you're looking for them. So what's in it for you in Luxembourg? Whom should you have a cooperation with? Let's start with the book and publishing sector. So it's very tiny, but we have more than 25 publishers, really with a legal basis, and we have more than 600 living authors being in the online dictionary autorenlexicon.lu, and we have one export program so that I'm responsible for. On the other hand, for intercultural dialogue and social integration, we have lots of stakeholders really having a strong commitment to this context. I'm thinking, for instance, about Wir wollen uns heimisch weisen, which is an association that is mainly having cultural projects with migrants and refugees newly arrived in Luxembourg. Or Nina is an association which brings together refugees, mainly Syrian refugees, and classical musicians to do orchestras together, and they are planning also for the Capital of Culture 2022 a program. So still looking for partners if you're eager to join that. And we have an Arabic Exchange Association also doing lots of cultural projects per year. On the next slide we have cultural heritage. Luxembourg is small, but for the European Year of Cultural Heritage we had 167 labeled projects in Luxembourg. If you want to reach out to somebody, I was before taking over the export program for books, I was in charge of the European Year of Cultural Heritage in Luxembourg, so I have roughly 650 different contacts of stakeholders dealing in the field of cultural heritage in Luxembourg. And there we have also one of the Creative Europe supported projects, which is Parallel Traces, a new lands for Jewish heritage with Serbian, so it's Luxembourgish Lead, the European Association of Jewish Heritage. It's about unearthing, undigging in different urban landscapes Jewish heritage, and to highlight this on one side with exhibitions and on the other side with audiovisual photography and an application and augmented reality. And in this project with Luxembourgish Lead, we have also a Serbian partner in the project. It's on page 41, so I'm not going to mispronounce the name, you just look at page 41 of Dimitri's brilliant brochure. Try to guess it, it's the dance and choreography sector. There I would, for instance, give you the advice, we have the 3CL, the Choreography and Creation Center Luxembourg, which is really, let's say, the umbrella organization which on one side is creating projects, On the other hand, it's also giving financial support and structural support for choreographers, for dance companies. So really their aim is to create, to promote, and to network. So it's one very interesting contact point for you in this field. And then theatre, Luxembourg is small. We have one federation for theatres and theatre companies, but having 22 members. Not so bad for roughly 613,000 inhabitants. And then we also have a Creative Europe project with the theatres of the city of Luxembourg that was called Young Opera Makers, programmed by ANOA. Very lively sector is the music sector. I'm going to dig more now into, let's say, rock pop than into classic, but also in the classic area you have, for instance, the Union Grand Duc Adolphe, the UGDA, that had a project together with MC, European Music Competitions for Youth, network, and that was called, let me have a look at my cheat sheet, Give Music a Future. So really targeting in the classical music sector the young music practitioners. And on the other hand, talking about the more rock pop area, you have Rockal and also Music Alex, which is the Luxembourgish export program for music, and they are active in 3 Creative Europe supported projects, being Excite, Life Europe, and Enos. Then somebody that's really actively looking for partners to develop a Creative Europe project is in this field Multiplica Festival by the Rotonde, so which is a digital arts festival that links really different sectors, cultural sectors, including performing arts, music, and visual arts. And finally, last but not least, European Capital of Culture is going to be in 22 Asch-sur-Alzette, but it is not just one city that is going to be capital of culture, but thinking beyond the borders, having this Schengen esprit, as I call it. It is a European capital of culture that is working with different municipalities in the south region of Luxembourg and beyond the border with French municipalities of the Communauté du Haut-Val de l'Alzette. And the theme for this cross-border capital of culture is remix culture. It's about what Luxembourg is. It's a melting pot of cultures. So it's about remixing nature after industries are gone. How does nature grow back, and how can we on a cultural field deal with this and communicate about it? You have Remix Yourself, the huge question about identities in the 21st century, and finally, last but not least, remix art. So, and there's many more. That was just a rough overview. I hope this gives you a little insight that Luxembourg is more than just the 82 and 57 kilometers. So if you have any questions, let's get in touch. There's my contact. That's the moment where you can take the pictures. And I just say thank you very much.
Presentation. And next we have as a speaker Vincent Soccodato, Creative Europe Desk, France.
And it will be a tandem duo presentation, because we have the pleasure to be with Anne Grelovic from the theatre company L'Instant Même, and so it will be interesting also with Anne to share her own experience and cooperation with Serbian organization. So, good evening. So my name is Vincent Soccodato. I work for the Creative Europe Desk in Paris, called Relais Culture Europe, and I have a background in political sciences and cultural management, and I work during 13 years in cultural organization, classical music and cultural heritage in the southwest of France, close to La Rochelle and Bordeaux. And our vision as Relais Culture Europe is to be a platform for innovation and to open cooperation in order to inform, help, and help French cultural, creative and audiovisual stakeholders to develop their European cooperation in Europe and in a larger scale. And we are also merged desks, so we work simultaneously on the culture and the media program for the audiovisual sector. And since 2014, we mobilized many cultural and audiovisual stakeholders in France, and we help them to prepare their application and with good results. And I would like to share with you some examples in terms of cooperation cultural projects from this Creative Europe program generations in very different diversity of content and artistic practices. First one, it's large-scale big projects called Europe Comics, about the European graphic novel heritage. So it's a large network of 16 organizations involved in comics production, and the coordinator is a French-Belgian agent Mediatun licensing. We involved in this project a Serbian partner, Darkwood do Beograd. And another project is We Are Europe, which is an association of 8 major European music festivals, and particularly in electronic music, and also about challenge to develop digital technologies and new competencies for professional artists and musicians. And this project is coordinated by Artifarty in Lyon, who organizes the festival Nuit Sonore, and in cooperation with the Serbian organization Resonate Live and Pro, based also in Belgrade. And the last example is a small-scale project about theater and about a specific approach in connection with performing arts and also artificial intelligence. And during this project, the coordinator and the partners propose different interactive workshops on theater involving citizens from different European countries, and also about how the concept of truth, trust and transparency are also very evolving also in the future context of the confrontation between human and artificial intelligence. And it was also coordinated by the French organization and with 5 other partners, and among them the Artefact Fundazione in Beograd, and this organization I know will participate to new cooperation projects now. And so we hope that also in the future we will see more also Serbian organization will be the leader and the coordinator of cooperation projects. And then I will give the microphone to Anne, who will share with us experience as coordinator. And so Anne, I will choose.
Yes, thank you. So I promised I would be very quick, so I will more or less read my notes. So my name is Anne Borilovic. I'm a theatre writer, translator and director, and my French company, very small theatre company, so I'm the living proof that you can do great work in small-scale cooperation projects with a small theatre company, which is, I think, good news for everyone. I'm the artistic director of the Compagnie L'Instant Même, and since 2016, co-director of the Instant Mix Theatre Lab that we created through the support of a small-scale cooperation project in 2016-2017. So the core of this project is to develop bilingual, multilingual performance without subtitles. So I won't explain it now because it takes about a week to explain. And so the initial project involves partners from Morocco, Italy, the UK, and Serbia. So my partner in Serbia was the Academy of Arts Novi Sad, and they are still my partner for a new application at the end of this month, the Department of Dramaturgy and Playwriting, which is very active in creative writing and was interesting in cooperating with us on this multilingual scheme project. Je te laisse passer. So I'll just comment a few photographs that is the kind of history of a cooperation with Serbia, which, like every cooperation project, had unexpected, and in this case, very positive outcomes. So this was our first mobility in Novi Sad. We came with British and French, well, not all British and French, but from Britain and France, young directors and actors. So it was transborder and transdisciplinary, because we worked together with directors, authors and writers and actors who, even in the same schools or organizations, don't always work together. So the outcome of this was a festival in the Paris region for multilingual shows, so called Les Rencontres Multilingues pour Tous. And from the Serbian writers, we had 3 productions. One was, one acts by emerging writers who are doing their first public performance. One is called Dievojka I Jež, so the young girl and the hedgehog, by Irina Subakov, a production for children that we did in French and Serbian. And the other one is called New Year's Explosion. It was meant to be in national language and Arabic, so we translated it into French and Arabic, and it was also performed in the Paris region. The third production was a play by Uglješa Saštinac, who is like this wonderful playwright, and one of the reasons I worked with Serbia in the first place. So we translated Borderland, which is a very, very exciting play that was received with a lot of admiration in Paris, and it had never been performed there. We only went to the stage of doing a stage reading, but it was really very interesting. So some of this happened at the Serbian Cultural Center in Paris, and you can see on the picture on the right that it's right across from Beaubourg, which is like a major asset for that place. So we had lots of professional meetings with Théâtre de l'Odéon and Théâtre de la Colline, like major venues in Paris who do multilingual and intercultural work. So, through being in Novi Sad for these projects, I met with Emilia Mrdakovic, who was then running the Pozoriste Mladi in Novi Sad, and she said, would you come and do a production with us? And of course I said yes, and then we discussed, and I met the ensemble, which for a French director is a really, really new and special experience to work with a permanent ensemble. First you have like 15 people that you can work with. You don't have to reduce your cast to 4, because otherwise you won't be able to work. So we did a kind of audition workshop, and then 15 actors volunteered, and we had a French composer, Marc-Olivier Dupin, and a dream team of 3 set designers, 2 costume designers, 1 choreographer, 1 musical coach, 2 stage managers, all from Novi Sad or Belgrade, and all female. So we actually prepared set and costumes through Skype with Romana here, and we had 3 weeks of rehearsals with the largest team I've ever worked with, and the result was this Serbian version of Bourgeois Gentilhomme. So one of the words I really know in Serbian is plemić, but it's not really useful in everyday life. And so, thank you. Hvala.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation and also sharing experience in projects. Next speaker is Bianca, Creative Europe Desk.
good evening, everyone. First of all, again, thank you, Dimitri, and the entire team for inviting me again, and for organizing all this very big event. Also, I was asked to say a bit about myself. I've been working in this Creative Europe network even before the program was called like this, for 11 years already. And I have a background in cultural management and cultural policy, and I'm actually happy to say that I'm a graduate of a master here in Belgrade on this subject. I will combine today in my presentation. I will try to combine some information about the Romanian cultural sector in terms of how active it is in Creative Europe, but also trying to give you an idea of, just a second to handle the technical things. Okay. I will also try to combine, to give you a bit more information in a very short time, combining the results of a research on the cultural vitality of cities in Romania, which was launched last year. But before that, I would just want to give you some quantitative information about Romania's participation in Creative Europe in cooperation projects, to be more precise. So we have 59 organizations which are involved in 77 cooperation projects, and most of them are partners. We have only 4 leaders. Unfortunately, no project between Serbia and Romania as a lead partner, one of the 2 countries, but there are projects in which both Romanian and Serbian organizations are partners in a project coordinated by another country. So there is hope for more, I hope. Mostly in terms of the sectors, organizations from the public sector and from the NGO sector are kind of equally divided. We have a bit more public organizations than NGO, but the trend is really balanced. And also the performing arts is a very, very active sector in Romania, like theater, dance, contemporary dance, music as well. And then on the second place, there's cultural heritage, both material and immaterial cultural heritage. So organizations from these fields are maybe a bit more active in Creative Europe than other fields. So I chose to kind of present the cultural scene through the cities in Romania, and most probably you might find more openness for partnerships from these projects. I only chose the 4 examples. Of course, there are more culturally vital cities, but these are the ones who are also more active in Creative Europe. Many organizations come from Bucharest, which is in the south, from Cluj-Napoca, which is in the northwest region, from Timișoara in the west region, and from Sibiu, which is in the very center. And the indicators that were used to establish this cultural vitality were the opportunities that these cities have in terms of the specialized human resources or working in culture, the infrastructure, the cultural institutions that exist there, but also how developed the creative industries scene is. Also how much the audience participates in cultural events and activities, and also the financial support of the public authorities for culture. So I've combined this with how active the organizations are at Creative Europe. And to give you a snapshot of Cluj, I will start with Cluj because it's ranked first according to many of the criteria in this study, especially in terms of cultural infrastructure. This also explains why many big events are organized in Cluj. Maybe you've heard about Untold Music Festival, which is one of the biggest in Europe, and as they presented one of the top 10 as in terms of popularity on the international scene, electronic music. And this is also due to the infrastructure that Cluj has to host such big events. There's also the Transylvania International Film Festival, which is a very well-known film festival taking place in Romania each year. Jazz in the Park, which is a very transparent name for what they do. But also there are very interesting initiatives called, for instance, the Paintbrush Factory, which is a collective of artists and arts organizations sharing basically a space, which is a post-industrial space in Cluj. It is, if you want, very simplistically said, a sort of co-working place for artists where they share resources, they work as a community, and I think at least 2 organizations which are part of Creative Europe projects are also based in the Paintbrush Factory. Cluj-Napoca was also competed for the title of European Capital of Culture in Romania for 2021. It was not selected because Timișoara was, as you know, but the interesting thing is that they decided to continue to implement the program. Maybe not as such as it was proposed for the competition, but an important part was taken into account by the public authorities, and they are trying to invest in it and to support culture as much as possible. We have some very active organizations from Cluj. Actually, after Bucharest, which has the most active organizations in Creative Europe, Cluj is the second one, and we have, for instance, Transylvania Trust Foundation, which is one of the long-standing leaders of Creative Europe projects in Romania. You might know, if you know about Electric Castle, the music festival. It's organized in Banfi Castle, which they've been managing, and where they organize a lot of projects. One of the last projects was them trying to establish an arts and crafts center, trying to revitalize the place and gather the community around this well-known castle next to Cluj. But then there's also other organizations. I'm just naming them because they're active and they're part of Creative Europe, so you might also try to connect to them. Cluj Cultural Center, which is part of two large projects in the last years, and Altar Foundation. They've been very much involved ever since Culture 2007 in cooperation projects, and they have very interesting interdisciplinary projects linking culture and the city strategies, or culture and well-being, and so on. Now a snapshot of Timișoara, which you know will be the European Capital of Culture in 2021, which is the same year as Novi Sad in Serbia and Alexina in Greece. Their motto is "Shine your light, light up your city," which is a hint to the fact that Timișoara was the first city in continental Europe which had electrical street lighting, and they're using this as part of their artistic project and connecting it to the audiences. According to the Cultural Vitality Study, they have a very good infrastructure for performances, for concerts in particular. And in Creative Europe, we have 5 organizations from Timișoara, among which I will just quote Timișoara, the actual organization which implements the Capital of Culture program. And they are involved, as you can see, in one project which also has a Serbian partner, the Exit Foundation, the project, a large-scale cooperation project which has recently started and will end in 2023, called MOST, the complex strategy to develop the Balkan world music scene, which is focused on improving the market scene in this region, investing in the professionalization of musicians and managers, on export strategies for music, on mobility of artists, on developing audiences for music. And this is also interesting because, as you know, there's a framework at European level called Music Moves Europe, which also invests in the mobility of artists and the training for professionals. So I think this is an interesting project to follow because it might also feed into that wider policy project. We also have Sibiu, which used to be Capital of Culture in 2007, the same year as Luxemburg. Hello, Marc. And is constantly ranked among the top 10 culturally vital cities in Romania with public budgets above average at national level. And just to name one cultural event which you might know, it's the city hosts the International Theatre Festival in Sibiu, FITS, which is organized by Radu Stanca Theatre, actually, who is involved in 5 cooperation projects, both large-scale cooperation projects and small-scale cooperation projects. They are always partners, they are never leaders, but I think they implement a good pattern of cooperation, and as you can see, they're never free. They kind of link the projects and the timetables between them. Most of the projects have a very important audience development component part, and trying to bring audiences for theatre closer to this field. For Bucharest, they also competed for the European Capital of Culture title in Romania. As you can see, they have the power, the capacity to apply to such events, and which means also the cultural scene in the cities is quite well developed. It hosts several national umbrella organizations or national networks, like the Romanian Networks of Museums, the Network of Public Libraries, or visual artists, architects, or publishers. So I was also asked to say whether we have any umbrella organizations at national level which could function as a cooperation partner. So I think if you're interested, I can tell you more during the break. There are quite, just also tell you some other examples outside Creative Europe. Of course, it's the city which hosts the large organizations, the large museums and theaters. But besides that, in the last years, we've also seen the rise of some important wide visibility events like Art Safari, which is like a temporary museum, an art pavilion of contemporary art installations, performances, and workshop for kids. Or a Romanian Design Week, which is a 10-day festival which tries to make design accessible to a larger audience, design meaning from graphic design to fashion design, product design, architecture, applied arts, and so on. And I think these are some very interesting initiatives which you might find out more about. We also have very many lately creative hubs in Bucharest. For instance, a very active, lively initiative is called Node Makerspace, which brings together artists from across fields, and they form a community there, and they also have materials or instruments that are useful in their jobs. For instance, if I'm a jewelry artist and I don't have all the equipment to make the jewelry, the Node Makerspace provides this infrastructure and also teaches artists how to work with them. It's basically the concept of a makerspace, which you know. What's interesting about this creative hub is that they host a material library, which is the first material library in Southeastern Europe, which means that if you are an architect or a designer and you want to see samples of materials before actually producing the object, you can go there and test. So just some interesting initiatives from Bucharest. There are 23 organizations in Creative Europe cooperation projects, the largest number compared to other cities. And some of the most active ones are listed in the slide. The National Museum of the Romanian Peasant has a very interesting project. They just finished it. It's called Cutenda, which in Romanian, like Macedonian language, let's say, is called Traveling with a Tent. And they look into the material and immaterial heritage of this Romanian community through dance, through film, through exhibitions, creative workshops.
I'm sorry, just to say that's Țințari, we say Țințari.
Țințari, okay, yeah, I know there are several names for that. Okay, I didn't know which one you know. So these are, I can of course give you very precise names depending on what your interest, if you want to find partners in Romania. And to finish, I have a very concrete example of a cooperation project with a Romanian leader, which just finished, and it focuses on the exploration of family relations through which are impacted by migration and by using technology. So the starting point is communication via internet between families which are away. And the project started with interviews with migrants and their families who remained at home. And they used these interviews in order to create a theater performance, which is mediated by technology, by the internet. It was very interesting. I actually attended one of their performances, and there were actors in Spain and in Romania, in Buzău, which did together a theater performance with actors basically being in completely different places. and having different audiences which were seen on screen. So this is a very interesting example, and it had partners from Spain and from Portugal. If you have any questions or you want to find more specific partners, you can write to me or I can be available during the break. So thank you.